When we think of idols, it's so easy to start pointing the finger. We think about the ways that people idolize money, the way that people covet what other people have, the way that people look up to the stars, whether they be an athlete or someone of Hollywood, and they begin to idolize, they begin to worship, they begin to follow what they're saying. And yet, as we look and see what everybody else is doing, sometimes we forget or we don't have the ability and put blinders on, and we don't see the things that we idolize. We don't see the ways that we are worshiping something other than God. And that's where David is right now in his journey. David, we've been talking about David for several weeks. If you've been with us or you're just new to the journey with us, we've really been kind of looking back and seeing this guy, this journey of faith. And we see this young kid who steps out, and he's not afraid to be himself. He knows that God has set him apart. And when the impossible comes his way, he's not afraid to attack it, to slay it. And then, as he grows in his leadership, as he is anointed the king and the leader of the people of Israel, something traumatic happens. There's a deep grief and loss, and his mentor and then his best friend, they die in a battle, and he lets all of his emotions out. He's not afraid of what other people are saying about him. His grief and his lament is so strong that he literally ripped his clothes off. And he left these words so that the generation after him would remember that when their hearts are broken, that they would have a place to go. And then last week we were talking about how really David looked around and he realized that the Ark of the Covenant, which held all the holy objects, that they had forgotten it. They had set it aside, and they had been doing really what they wanted to do, and they knew all the right words and all the right things to say, and they put God to the side and not necessarily carry God with them. And David said, we got to start carrying God with us. And he goes to the Ark and he brings it painstakingly into the city. And at this time in history, the city is called David's City. It's the highest point. We know it as Jerusalem today. But there's this sense, David has had this amazing holy moment. It's that moment that Moses has had when he was standing on the holy ground and the bush is burning at his feet. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not burning, I'm not engulfed, and there's this holiness. It's the same thing that happens with the disciples on the way to Emmaus, and they feel something different, some sort of transformation inside of them. It's the same thing that John Wesley describes as when his heart was strangely warmed. David has that moment when he's carrying the Ark of the Covenant, when he's being so careful to know that he's carrying God with him. But then time continues. And David has put the Ark of the Covenant in a specific place in the city. It's at the highest point. And now David wants to do something that is out of the ordinary, that they've never done before. David wants to build person. Nathan goes, oh yeah, David, you can do whatever you want. Build whatever you want. And then something happens. Nathan goes to sleep, and God comes to Nathan and he says, Nathan, you got to go tell David something important. You can't let David build this structure. I never asked for David to build a structure. You've got to go to him. You've got to be the one to say, hey, this isn't right. This isn't about a building. And Nathan goes to his best friend. He goes to the king, and he goes to David, and he said, hey, David, this is what God has said to me. God doesn't want you to build a building. God doesn't want you to build a temple. God is really kind of knocking at David the same way that he came to the Israelites in the first place when he said, hey, if you're going to build a community, I don't want you to have any other idols before me. As God was saying that to Moses, They were on the ground. They were at the bottom of the mountain and they were building a golden temple. The people wanted something that they could touch. They wanted something that was steady, that they could put their hand on, that they could know that God was there. And they worshiped. They began to worship this idol, this object, at the same point that God is saying to Moses, hey, don't have any other things before me. Because when you do that, you will lose sight of me. And that's what he comes back and he's trying to tell David, hey, David, don't do this. Don't build me a building. I've gone with you from the beginning of time. I've been with you. I've been moving. I've given you signs. I've been the cloud in the day and the fire by night, and we've always traveled together. They are not done with devastation. They are not done with fighting the enemy. And that temple falls over and over and over. And what they continue to do is rebuild. And they leave there. Every time the temple falls, the people are shattered. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. And so what they begin to do is put their hands on the wall that is closest to that which is fallen. Because they believe that if they touch the wall, then it's there that God is present. They didn't heed the warning. David wanted to build a structure. David wanted to build something to contain God. And here we are, generations later, contained in walls. In the United States alone, there are almost 31,000 United Methodist churches, buildings, walls. Just on our corner, you can see that there are 3 houses of worship, walls. Just in this zip code, in this 3205 zip code, there are almost 20 churches, walls. All of us idolizing what is in our buildings. And the question becomes, have we become so consumed with our building that we actually forget to worship the very God that is moving and breathing? This building is important. It gives us comfort. We walk in the door, we know where the restrooms are, we know where to sit. To our Sunday school classes, we know we can look across the aisle and see somebody that knows our name. And if we are a guest, I hope that somebody knows your name today. We are in this place and we think about the 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 years that we have come and stood at the altar, and we want all of these holy moments. They're contained here in this place, in this structure. But are we worshiping this structure more than we're worshiping the very God that has called us out into the world? Have you ever thought about what it was like, what it is like to be a guest that comes in the door, that has to have the courage to walk in the door? They wonder if they're going to be dressed appropriately, where to sit, where to go, how to get to the restroom. Do we have children? Am I going to know the music? What is the pastor going to be like? What's the theology of the church? There are all these unknowns, and the walls themselves become restrictive. And so today the question is, are we more consumed with our building and saying that God's holiness rests only in this place? And have we created a temple that houses God? Or are we people that continue to carry God with us and allow God to move freely into the world? I know there are moments when I don't like preaching certain scriptures, and this is one of them because I know buildings are important to us. And I know in our congregation, if you haven't been with us, if you've been with us for 10 years or more, you will know the pain that comes when 3601 is threatened and the idea of moving away was thrust upon us. And yet the question still comes to us in the midst of that pain, in the midst of that rattling. Are we more consumed with the building and the structure than we are of worshiping God? Because we are back to the original, what are we idolizing? Do we have other gods that we put before? Is the building something we put before God, or is God something that we carry out into the world? God reminds us that this journey of discipleship is filled with decisions. And God is not going to be contained in four walls. But we have to choose who we're going to worship and what we're going to worship. And so today, what are we going to worship? Is it a building? Or is the living, breathing holiness of God's presence moving and acting in the world today? Let us pray.